2. Well, we've been doing some free agent profiles, some draft profiles. We're kind of, 'tis the season. Last week we did a free agent one. John did a great job and a write-up on A to Z Sports on Geno Stone, a guy who's kind of growing in popularity amongst the Bengals masses as a free agent acquisition. Take one of your biggest rivals, add to your defense, and supplement things, and hopefully improve upon some things there. This week, we're looking at the other side of the ball and on a younger incoming player, a draft profile, and one of my favorites in this entire class. One of my absolute favorite players. Yes, he's a Pac-12 guy. Yes, he's a Pac-12 guy, John Sheeran, but he is in a position the Bengals potentially need. He brings a tenacity. He brings a physicality that is just has AFC North written all over it. A little bit of a question on if he will be there by the time the Bengals pick, but and maybe some overall polishing and obviously maturity growth, that sort of thing as he goes to the NFL. But the reason, aside from him being one of my favorite guys in this draft, the reason we went this route, John, is because he was recently tabbed by Field Yates of ESPN as the pick at number 18 by the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the few that seemed to have him be able to be there for them. And that would be Oregon State offensive tackle, right tackle, Taliese Fuaga. And we've got a video here for you with him, highlighting some of his accolades and that sort of thing. I love this guy. He was a captain last year. Big dude. Weight kind of fluctuates depending on the source that you cite, anywhere from 325 to 335. He's played at. He's 6'6" and just mean at the point of attack. 6'6", I put 334 because that's one of the ones. He's a redshirt junior, so not a true senior, not overly up there in age. He's from Tacoma, Washington. And there are some similarities to Penei Sewell. Sewell was a little bit more of a finished product, I think, to him, who, and he played at Oregon, obviously, and he has become one of the best offensive linemen in football. 2023 first team All-American was Fuaga, 22 and 23 first team All Pac-12. He was one of the best players and most talked about players in the Senior Bowl, who are now beginning to allow some non-seniors coming into the draft to participate. Like I said, 2023 team captain. Look at this on the rush offensive averages, John. 167.1 yards in a game and 2 touchdowns on the ground in the game. And I know for a long time, I know this is a pass-first team with Burrow and all the weapons, but you look at that and you go, man, if they could bring some semblance of that balance to the right side. We like Jonah Williams. Nice transition to the right tackle, but if that doesn't work out in keeping him long-term, this is a guy who steps in, and you have 2 absolute mammoths at both tackle positions on your offensive line. Here he is right here. Look at him just take out the guy at the second level, and let me just bury you one more time. We could look at these again. Just bring a big play here. Here he is, top of your screen, right tackle. Look at him pull out, take this guy just completely out of the play, and again, just on him. And then here he is, courtesy of the Senior Bowl. And do you notice a theme? And we'll go back to that. Do you notice a theme of every single one of those shots, John? His guy is just planted to the ground. Here he is. That guy just loses his feet. Boom, done. And here's the next one where, again, against Washington here, he's going to pull up and just take this guy off the edge, just completely out of the play. See you later. And you are just driven to the ground. And here he is in pass pro, Senior Bowl, taking the guy to the ground there once again. That's the theme. He gets his hands on you. He gets into your pads, and that's a guy that just creates a ton of trouble for you as a defender. Physical, nasty. And one of the things he said in a Senior Bowl interview that he feels is one of his biggest strengths is balance and balance at the point of attack and whatnot. And so that is the thing where I think the Bengals have picked athletes. When you look at Cedric Ogbuehi, and a guy who had injury issues and never materialized into anything for the Bengals, they took an athletic guy in Jake Fisher. That also blew up in their face that same draft. And then, you get the kind of the bigger guy in Orlando Brown, who's, really, really big and mammoth and strong and all that kind of stuff. This guy just is an all-around player. I don't know that he's going to make it to 18 as the Bengals get on the clock, but if I'm the Bengals, you lose Jonah Williams in this free agency period. You start to see Fuaga's probably not going to be the first offensive tackle taken in this draft, but he will be very, very high, an offensive lineman high taken in this draft. I think you try and trade up a few spots if he's there. If you think he's not going to get past 13 or 14 and you're the Bengals, I think you make a move to get up this guy. That's how much I like this guy and how much I think, as much as I have harped on be physical in the AFC North, match the physicality of the Steelers, match the physicality of the Ravens and the Browns. This is a guy who does that and does so on a big, big level. I would love this guy as a Cincinnati Bengals right tackle.
I think he makes a lot of sense for what they value at this point in offensive linemen. 2 really consistent years of production, starting at right tackle, by the way. Like, he was moving from left to right. He hasn't been inside. He's only been at that spot, which seems to be a theme for a lot of these tackles. I think Amarius Mims is kind of the same way with Georgia, even though he's got less experience. But Mims is going to be a guy that he's competing with in terms of who gets off the board first. Dane Brugler recently had him, I think, ranked 16th in his top 100, like the 4th tackle behind like the top guys, and I think another one who's kind of been rising up a little bit. So he's in about that range where he should be in the conversation. I think he's ultimately going to be like the poster child this year, though, of is he a tackle or is he a guard? And that was a note that Brugler mentioned, like teams are kind of split on that. I want to read his measurables from the Senior Bowl and compare him to an NFL player that everyone should already know. So Fuaga measured in at 6'6", 332, 10 and a quarter inch hands, and 33 3/8 inch arms. And this other player who has only been a guard in the NFL is 6'5", 325, 33 3/4 inch arm length, 10 3/8 hands, and also their wingspans are about 82 inches. The guy I just mentioned and read off was Quentin Nelson. Now, Quentin Nelson was a phenomenal athlete out of Notre Dame, which I think is going to be the other factor here as well. If Fuaga tests well, specifically with his agility and his 3-cone and short shuttle, and if he's explosive, I think that'll give teams like the Bengals a lot more confidence that he can survive on the outside in the NFL. If he tests like a middling athlete, I think not only does that impact where he plays in the NFL, but also could impact where he goes in the draft overall. Typically, like from what I've learned about the Bengals over the years, like 34-inch, like Jonah Williams, I think was an exception to the rule at tackle. I think for the most part, guys who are that big with 33-inch arms, they typically get listed as a guard for them. La'el Collins was an example. Like coming out of college, I remember they had him as a guard, but obviously once he proved he could play tackle in the NFL, they played him at tackle. And again, Jonah Williams was the 11th overall pick with 33-inch arms, and they obviously had him as not only a tackle, but a left tackle. So Fuaga could definitely be a tackle in their mind. I think, though, with the uncertainty around the league of where they see him, the combine is going to be huge for him. And if he tests well, that's good news and bad news for the Bengals, because obviously it's good news that they get a high-end athlete who's a phenomenal run blocker, but bad news in the sense that he might be a top 16 pick at that point. If he doesn't test well, then it's a question of where does he belong in the NFL? Can he survive on the outside against some of the elite pass rushers where he didn't really have to face that many in Oregon State? A lot of questions with him, but obviously, like we just saw, a lot of fun to watch him run block, and that's going to be obviously an incredible important thing for the Bengals to kind of capture this year.
Right, and the arm length is a bit of an issue there, and yeah, I mean there are questions about that. Let's say the Bengals draft him and they have an idea for him at guard. Would that be a right guard, and you shuffle around Alex Kappa, who's been a right guard? Do you try him at left guard? This is where I start then to say, if you are the Bengals and you do not view him as a tackle at the next level, I get a little leery because we've seen the whole, Jackson Carman and, remember Stacey Andrews was a guy, and it was tackle and then it was guard and then and there's never a true footing or a true fit. So that's where I get a little leery that if the Bengals are kind of like, well, he could be guard or he could be tackle, then I almost would say maybe you want to stay away. Because there's a track record there of the Bengals experimenting with guys, tackle, guard, all that kind of stuff. And, maybe you can play both, but it's not shown to be playing both at really a high level. I think, again, if he tests well And if he can show the propensity to get past a little bit of the shorter arms as a tackle, then you draft him there and you roll the dice as you see fit there. But I think, to your point, if teams like the Bengals view him as a potential guard, I would almost just say, all right, let's look for somebody with longer arms who's a true tackle, because we can't keep doing this. Positional flexibility is great, and having, maximizing your roster spots is definitely great, but you can't keep doing this, 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing. Find the right fit and make it work.
And I think a player in his position, knowing what teams are probably think, like I'm sure his agents had these conversations. I'm sure his training coaches have had these conversations as well. I'm not sure if he repped any other position aside from right tackle at the Senior Bowl, but I would imagine when he works out for some of these teams or at his pro day, he's going to take some reps at guard just to see if he can do that. Because again, there's no tape on him doing that, but if teams look at his size and athletic profile and they look at his strengths and weaknesses, and if they determine you're probably best being a guard, I'm sure he's going to put in the work, and I'm sure that's going to, allow the Bengals to be more comfortable if that's the plan. I think replacing Cordell Volson at left guard would be like a clear and obvious choice here. Like if they don't see him as tackle, and they would give him a clear upgrade at that spot if he's willing to, transition there. But I'm with you. Like if they decide he's a guard, keep him at guard. If they decide he's a tackle, keep him at tackle. They could use one or the other right now. They obviously need a right tackle a little bit more because they don't have a starter, at least under contract. But yeah, it's really going to come down to how he moves at the combine. And I think if he doesn't test well, I would honestly kind of prefer the Bengals to maybe stay away, because I think they need more athletes rather than, just guys who can't really move that well, because I think pass protection is still going to be the most important thing to look for, specifically at tackle. And yeah, it's really going to come down to how he moves, but I'm excited to see it because this is a phenomenal tackle class and he's right there in the middle. And yeah, like again, I don't want to take away anything from his power and his ability to move people as a run blocker, because again, they do need that as well.
Yeah, and that's where some of the most fun tape comes from. And I think there's, with that, you get, that means he's not a great pass protector. Not necessarily true. I think that's more of the weaker side of his game, but that's not really true. But again, you look at the NFL level and the potentially a little bit of shorter arms, that sort of thing. That's where you get a little leery. Again, if he is considered a guard, I think then you go, he should be there at 18, and then maybe even, where's the value at that point? How does he test? That's always the question with a lot of these guys, particularly when we look at the offensive line. Like you said, the Bengals need more athletic profiles, high athletic profiles, athletes on the line, and guys that can move. I just really, really like the guy, and there's some fun tape out there. And the good news is, if the Bengals seemingly will have some form of a lot of options at right tackle, whether it is retaining Jonah Williams, whether it is getting one of these replacements, or a vet replacement on a rental deal and a developmental guy, either or. We'll see. But Fuaga is one of my favorites in the class. Really, really like him, and like him for the division. Really, I mean, that's kind of my thing. I think he fits the profile of the division, and who knows? Maybe he ends up being a good guard instead of a tackle. We'll see.
He's going to be a fan favorite though. Like that smile though, like his teeth, like that looks like just a jolly offensive lineman.
Yeah, I get a little tired of two phrases being thrown around. One is within Bengals circles, and one is just in general on Twitter or X, that he has that dog in him, or of course the glass eaters type of thing. But both of those, I kind of feel like this guy embodies that, quite honestly. As cliche as some of those sayings are, I see it with this guy. But